Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now you can go ahead, sir.
So yeah, coming back to the title itself, Backable was really fascinating. So when Saurabh talked to me saying that this is a new book you have to read, and we'll be having a cover page. I said, okay, let me check this. So I started reading it, and because it was 196 pages length,
Yeah.
I could spend few hours in a day to complete reading it. So it was a great experience because it was not kind of the regular self-help book we get, but yeah, it was kind of self-talk and exploring new things. It's not a general book. So I thought, oh fine, this was a great read. I think I have told Saurabh many times whenever we used to have a call. I said like Backable is a new book, very nice, very different kind of book. So my first question, in a formal way, is like, why the title Backable? I just want to know the story behind it.
Yeah. When I was writing the book, I was based in Silicon. I started writing the book when I was based in Silicon Valley, and I had been an entrepreneur who was out there initially trying to raise money for my company, and I was not having any success. And one of the phrases that I continued to hear during that time from investors was, you know, is something backable? Is it a backable idea? Right. And the first time I heard it, I said, I don't know what that really means. What does that mean? But as I started to kind of understand it, what I realized is that it's ultimately not just for an investor looking or a startup looking for funding. We're really all trying to, in some ways, become backable, right? We all have ideas inside of us, and in a lot of ways, I think that's what makes us human. If we compare ourselves to the rest of the universe, the thing that I think it's our imagination, it's our ideas that really distinguishes us. And when we cannot get other people excited about those ideas, it can be it's not just a career limiting experience, it's a life limiting experience, right? We're all of a sudden, we don't really feel like we're truly living our career, and we truly don't feel like we're living our lives. And so what started to me as this businessy sort of slang lingo, as I
Yeah.
really started to take a careful look at it, what I began to realize is that it's much more than that. It's about emotion. It's about even spirituality in some senses. It's who we are as human beings.
This is really great, because business is always about numbers, but when you really look at in different angles, so it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's like, yeah, that's truly soulful. So I can now sense it. Now the stories that you have put in the book makes really good sense. So yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, the next question would be, why those stories? I just like, they're so interesting. Because lesser known stories, I may say, because always people look up only to the successful stories.
Yeah.
On a superficial layer, we just talk about the success,
Yeah.
but we never go back and see like what were the hardships people have taken in, what were the pains they have taken in. But that incident wherein the restaurateur, he has shut down it for 3 months or 4 months, and then took a backup plan with his own catering people, the chef, and then he started back. He bounced back. That was really fascinating to maybe I will never had a chance. I would never have a chance to read about that story unless until I've read your book.
Yeah.
So it was really fascinating. So what made you pick up those particular stories?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you noticed that. Any story that seemed like it was that it was a fast track to success, I just was not interested in, because I don't think that really resembles reality for the vast majority of us, right?
Okay.
And I also was very interested in, I think once I began to understand that most the people that we admire, they were the version of them that they are today was not the version that they started out as. And that may sound obvious, But I think oftentimes we sort of skip that. We kind of assume that if somebody is, great inside a room, they've always been that way, or they're a compelling leader. They've always been that way. They've been naturally gifted. And if we believe that, then what that does is it makes us feel that we can't ever become that way. We can't ever grow into that. So I think the most inspirational thing that I think any leader can do is not to just talk about their success, but talk about their failures and their setbacks and their mishaps, and really where they began. It's that sloppy version 1 of themselves.
Oh yeah.
And I think the more that leaders can really sort of show that side, that can be wildly inspirational, because at the end of the day, we're talking about relatability. Can you really, when you're talking about storytelling, it's about, can I relate to this character?
Absolutely.
And of course, we can be inspired by, people who are at the top and look at them and say, aspirationally, I want to be them, but we're not going to be inspired by them. We get inspired when we see people make the climb, especially when they've had those setbacks along the way.
I think this was the main reason the Steve Jobs was very famous, because his story was known to everyone. He started from a garage. So
he started from the garage and he got fired by Apple.
Absolutely.
If Steve Jobs hadn't been fired by Apple, the story would have been good, but it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful.
Absolutely. So because while I was reading the book, this was always lingering in my mind. And then I really wish, so many I wanted people to read the book. So I think I've recommended it to my friends, and I wanted to propagate the book. So, I was doing that on the other way. Yeah. Oh, come on. It's because, these are all, generally people take a different angle towards the self-help books, but this is quite different. I keep saying this all the time. I don't know why. I'm very fascinated with the stories itself. So I think Saurabh has also read the book. Saurabh, do you have any questions right now? After, I think I want you to ask some questions if you have.
No, I guess you should carry ahead. I will ask in between when I will be, ready with the things when the time comes. Yeah.
Okay. Then Suneel, when you have picked, you have picked certain stories, you wanted to present them in the book. What kind of did you have any confusion in putting those stories? Because maybe somewhere your personal this thing was coming in. Do you think whoever reads it will really take it into their hearts, like as you have taken that? So what kind of thing was going on at that point of time when you were presenting them?
You mean when I was actually sharing the stories?
Absolutely.
So the question, I just want to make sure I understand. The question is for my own personal stories?
Yeah. No. The stories you have put in the book. Because you had a different approach towards the hardship that people have went, and you have put in this book.
Yeah.
So how did you guess, or did you have a tangent of thinking people who read the book will also be in the same lines of understanding, like how you perceived it? Do you think even readers would perceive?
Yeah. I think it's really important. One of the things I learned as a writer is that, it can be tempting sometimes, especially with business books, to skip the details, right? To sort of get to the punchline as quickly as possible. And I think that that's important. I try to keep my book as succinct as possible. And I try to not, I try to sort of really, trim away the fat, as they say. But I tried to also, though, make sure that I was keeping the details of the story, right? So if I want to get you to know a character in my book, I can't simply say, well, Brian Grazer is a Hollywood producer. He's produced all these articles. I have to tell you about, the car ride that he took when he got in the car with his mentor, the person who would ultimately become his mentor, what he was feeling in that moment, how he was thinking about things in that moment. And I think that it's those details that really make us care, right? Because if you don't have those details, then you may not care, And in the case of Brian Grazer, it's like, the fact is that he was nervous. The fact is that he wasn't really prepared, you know,
Okay.
and yet, and that's how it all sort of came to be, that this guy who became his mentor said, all right, enough. You know, he said,
Yeah.
he interrupted him. He said, all right, enough. You know, you need to just pull out a piece of paper and you need to start writing. And, you know, when Brian told me that story, I thought to myself, I've been in that situation before. You know, I've been in a situation where I am trying to get people bought in on an idea, but I haven't done the work to really put it down on paper myself, really flesh it out myself. And so what am I really trying to get them to bought into? I'm trying to get them bought into just really the seed of an idea rather than something that's been really fleshed out or thought through. And so, you know, I try to take all the details that really kind of made me feel like, wow, I've been through that too, with the you know, with the hope that other people have been there as well. And I think that they have. You know, I Backable, I've been working on it now for 5 years. And
Wow.
you know, and I went out there. I spent a lot of time, you know, traveling the country, traveling the United States, meeting with small businesses, meeting with entrepreneurs, giving talks at colleges and universities. And I would take these lessons that I was learning and I would bring them into my talks. And you know, you look around and you see where people are nodding their heads, you know, and you see where people are, you know,
Yep.
you can just tell. I think like that's sort of I think that's one of the crafts of an author, is to be able to test out their material, but to test it out in a way that is not simply by asking people, hey, what do you think of that?
Correct.
But really just paying attention emotionally how people are responding to your material. And I had a chance to do that over these past 5 years. And I cut the stuff that wasn't resonating, because I certainly had a lot of stuff in there that,
I
you
get
know,
it.
I thought might be interesting, but it just didn't have that. It has to have both an intellectual and an emotional pull. And if it didn't have both an intellectual and emotional pull,
Mhm.
then I just cut it from the book.
That's the reason book is like really fascinating, as I always see, as said already and now also, because you know, there's a personal touch in your writing. So you know, because you have felt everything and then you have put in the book. So
Yeah.
and now I can see all the 5 years research that you have done. Now jotting down to 196 pages is not a small thing. It's a very rigorous work. I understand, you know. So and the other thing that really fascinated me in the book was the 7-step approach. So you know, that was really awesome, you know. I just want to know it from your mouth, you know, your words. So can you just tell me in brief, you know, what was that 7-step approach? Yeah.
You're asking why the 7 steps, or
Yeah, why and the basic idea behind the 7-step approach.
the basic idea behind it? Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the things that I always hear from people who are entrepreneurial, and by the way, I think anybody who's an author is by nature an entrepreneur. They may not be
Mhm.
starting a small business,
Yep.
but whenever you're creating something out of nothing, that makes you an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And one of the things that I always get as a question from people who are considering being entrepreneurial or being an entrepreneur is, how do I get started? Right? What do I do first? And um, you know, I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck with the start. And so I wanted to make something that actually gave people really a step-by-step framework, right? Where it was, this is literally where you go. You start out with convincing yourself first. So you get
Yeah.
the seedling of an idea. The first person you need to convince is not them. The first
With your,
person you need to convince is you,
Yourself.
right?
yeah, yeah,
Because if you don't believe, then they can't believe. So begin
yeah,
there, right? And then from there we start to get into the storytelling. We start to talk about how to cast a central character. And then from there we start to talk about some of the practice that we need to do, right? The exhibition matches and earn secret, and then it evolves from there. But I just find that whenever, you know, as long as it's not forced, if you can give people step by step, it can be a very clarifying thing for, I think, a lot of people who would make brilliant entrepreneurs.
Correct. That's, you know, because this book is not only for the entrepreneurs, it's for everyone almost.
Yeah.
The someone because we need a plan A and B in life also, but each and every decision. And if I really related to the book, yeah, that's awesome. But
Right.
that 7 step approach was like wow. And I think I have made some notes because of that. I think I'll be presenting it in my friends group or something, because I was maybe I thought if I had this clarity during the times I really wanted it, it would have been a different approach towards the life. Hope I had
Yeah.
read the book, that point of time. Yeah, it just happens like that. Now that
Yeah,
I can just at least go back, maybe in the future I would use the 7 step approach to at least take a good decision in future. Yes,
it's great.
obviously. And if I get some success, I'll really attribute it to Sunil. Yes, thank
Okay.
you for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
yeah.
I guess
So
I also guess that believing in yourself first, in your idea or anything you want to start, it also helps in you in persuading them to believe in your idea and invest in your idea.
Hmm.
I guess that also works that ways.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I started writing the book,
Yeah.
one of the things I assumed was that backable people were going to have a certain style of communication, right?
Yeah.
I just assumed that people who are backable were
Mhm.
going to be great speakers generally, right? But I did not find that to be the case, at least not conventionally. In the book I talk about, we talk about Steve Jobs, right? And we talk
yep,
about
yep.
his first iPhone launch speech. He uses the
Mhm.
word over
Ah,
80 times, right? In
yeah.
that in
Mhm.
that speech. He
Mhm.
spends a lot of time looking at his feet. It's not conventionally, at least, a great speech.
Speech.
Or you look at the number one most popular TED Talk of all time. If you go look it up right now, you'll find a talk by a guy named Sir Ken Robinson. Really,
Mhm.
really great speech.
Mhm.
Really great. But
But
it's not a very TED-like presentation. He's got
actually,
he's got one hand in his pocket. He sort of
Mhm.
meanders on and off script. It's a little bit disjointed. It's
kind of.
very much not your classic TED presentation. The point is that it's not charisma that makes a person backable. It's
Mhm.
Yep.
conviction. It's
Yeah.
conviction. That the underlying quality of anybody who is speaking well or seems to have a command over their idea is it's not because they're an introvert, it's not because they're an extrovert, it's not because they're a gifted speaker, it's because they have conviction for their idea,
Absolutely.
right? And
Mhm.
so, one of the things that, I think is a misconception is that we're told sometimes to fake it until you make it. And
Yeah.
I think fake it till you make it can work sometimes.
Mhm.
But the way that I think about it is like, M&Ms, the candy, the chocolate.
Yeah.
There's a
Mhm.
chocolate M&M and there's peanut M&M.
M&M. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Now both M&Ms have a candy coated shell, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you can fake that, but if you squeeze the chocolate M&M, it's going to
Mhm.
crack immediately, right? If you
Ooh.
Yeah.
squeeze the peanut M&M, it's
That's
not a piece of steel, but it's not going to crack immediately, right?
true.
Mhm.
And so you're not necessarily looking to become a piece of steel or a piece of metal before
Mhm.
you begin to share your ideas with people, but you need to have a peanut inside. You
Yeah.
need to have it to the point where people can't squeeze it and it will immediately crack. Because, you know, one of the things that we know is that when we come up with a new idea,
Mhm.
it's a very vulnerable moment. You know, the moment you come up with something new that you're excited about, you are very vulnerable in that moment. If you come to me immediately and I say, I don't know about that.
Mhm.
Even if I didn't say anything negative, even if I just said to you, I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that will work. Neutral statement. That can be very deflating. That can
Mhm.
be very
Absolutely.
that can really crush you, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're so vulnerable in that moment. So that's why backable people have learned, oftentimes through negative experiences, they have learned to resist the temptation to go
Yeah.
share their
Absolutely.
idea immediately,
Yeah.
right? To
Perfect.
even with literally even with my wife, if I've shared ideas with her and she's given me a neutral response, or she shared ideas and I gave her a neutral response, and that's been very deflating, right?
I get it.
So,
I get it.
so even with each other now,
Yeah.
I won't, I'll go to the dinner table and I'll have an idea I'm excited about, and I'll still resist the temptation to share it with her.
I get it.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, that's the reason, because of all these personal things attached. Maybe the book was really shining with, something. It's every word, because of the great font. The Hatchet has done a great thing. I was just talking to Saurav about it, because
Yeah.
book is looking big, but the contents are awesome. The flow and the fluidness of the book was like awesome. It's smooth, as you keep. I could not stop reading. I was just sweeping out the pages, that's the reason. And I had a great time again. I'm not can't resist myself putting on my personal experience of reading the book while I'm doing this with you. But it's like it's a fan moment, I can say, because yeah, I'm sharing the own experience with the author himself. Yeah, that's a point. That's a brownie point I got. Yeah. Okay, if at all I come to your, some apart from the book, just wanted to know. Um, I mean, it's a generic question, so I just want to know Sunil as a person. Apart from the author, Sunil as an author, just want to know Sunil as a person. So can just brief out, you can just brief out what Sunil as a person is. I just interested in knowing you. So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, the big part of my role right now as a human being is to be a bridge between my mom and my daughters. My mom was a refugee from, she's Sindhi, so she was on the border. She was living on the Pakistan side when partition happened, and then they came over and she landed in Baroda, and pretty meager conditions. She spent a lot of time living on rations in a refugee camp, and decided somehow that she wanted to become an engineer with Ford Motor Company, right? Which is a crazy, crazy dream for a girl in that situation to have, right? Because effectively if she were to follow sort of the cards that were handed to her, she would have ended up, with only one goal, which was to find a guy to marry and maybe have a little bit of upward mobility. But she decided that she wanted to get an education. She wanted to go do this. And her mom got behind the dream, got behind the vision, and they saved every rupee they had, and she was able to get to the United States and become Ford Motor Company's first female engineer.
Oh, wow.
And it's a I spent a lot of my time thinking about how do I keep. I was born and raised in very different conditions compared to her. I was born and raised in the Taj Mahal. It was very. I mean, it wasn't. We weren't rich, but I had an education. I had food. I had all the essentials. My brother and I both did, and so while that's good, that's very positive. What also happens as a result of that, I think, is that energy, the hunger, right, for something, the passion. When you're comfortable, that passion can also die down as well, right? And so as we do what I think as parents or we want to do is we want to give our kids a better life than we had. But oftentimes I find myself wondering, as we're giving them the better life, are we also killing that passion? Are we also killing that energy? And so I spend, a lot of time, my primary role is with my family. I'm a husband and I'm a father, and I have two little girls. And I spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about how do I pass what I've been given on to them and make sure that it doesn't just get completely diluted along the way. One of the ways I think about doing that, one of the ways I do that is every morning, my daughters and I have a little game we play. And I ask them two questions. I ask them, what is the meaning of life? And they say to find your gift. And then I say, well, what is the purpose of life? And they say to give it away. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time from Picasso. And I
Mm.
literally do this with them every single day, because if anything ever happens to me and if I had to leave them with one thing, like one element, nugget, that would be the thing.
That's great to
That's
know,
great.
because yeah, I don't think so. Like, however people reach their heights of in success, and both in professional and personal life, there are some these kind of anecdotes, that really inspire you. So, there are so many anecdotes in the book itself. Oh yeah, there were all the interesting anecdotes again. I don't want to spoil it now because I want others to read it once we come out with the cover story. So maybe when I put down my review on my blog, I would definitely recommend the book. Yes, because
You.
thanks for sharing this story, because it gives a more personal touch to the book again. Maybe there's a reason. I was finding a kind of connection with the book. Maybe that's the only reason, I think. Yeah. So Saurabh, maybe I am done with my professional kind of questions with the book related. So if you have any questions, I want you to talk about it.
I wanted to know in brief, Sunil, what is it, the ultimate thing that makes people persuade others to believe in their idea? What is, in a nutshell, I want to know.
Yeah, Saurabh, I think um, the the ultimate thing
Yeah.
is that you the ultimate thing is authenticity.
Hmm.
Bottom line is authenticity. And I think the thing that gets in the way of authenticity is ego,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Right.
Because when we come up with a new idea, what ends up happening is we want to make it our idea, right?
Hmm.
And we start to claim ownership over that, right?
Hmm.
And when that happens, all of a sudden, um, it's no longer just about the good you want to create. It's about you. It's about your career. It's about your advancement, and that really starts to taint the possibilities that could come by from what you have created. And it's a very tricky balance. You never Very few people are able to just completely eliminate their ego, but I think as somebody who is wants to have a big impact on the world through your art and through your writing and through your creativity, you have to learn how to make sure that you are not being managed by your ego, right? That
Hmm.
you're able to at least understand how to separate it to a certain extent. The story that I tell in the book that I really really appreciate is how a guy named
Hmm.
who Dr. George Schaller was a primatologist who did more for the research of mountain gorillas than anybody else, and he
Yeah.
was able to get very very close, right, to these animals. And one day somebody asked him at a conference, they say, Dr. Schaller, how is it that you're able to get so close to these gorillas, and none of us we
Hmm.
can't. We've been doing this for so long, and you're able to do this. And he says, oh, I never carry a gun. I never carry a
Hmm.
weapon. And the reason that was so surprising to people was because they carried a weapon, but they carried it in their backpack. So the assumption is if it's in a backpack and it's tucked away, why would it even make a difference? How would
Hmm.
how would these gorillas even know?
Yeah.
And what Dr. Schaller said is you can hide a gun, but you can never hide your attitude around a gun.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about ego. You can hide your ego, but you can't necessarily hide your attitude when your ego is really involved, when your ego is calling the shots. And you can put
Hmm.
on a pleasant face, you can put on a smile, you can do all the things you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, if it's not about the idea, but it's about you, people will know. And so I think that the ultimate thing that backable people will learn is how to make it about something other than them. Right?
Hmm.
When one of the best pieces of advice is very practical, is that when you're walking into a room to give a pitch or give a presentation, and you're the focus point of the meeting,
Hmm.
you're going to feel like the spotlight is on you. But as
Yeah.
soon as possible, your job is to take the spotlight and turn it to something else.
Right.
Turn it to your mission, turn it to your story, turn it to the character, turn it to, the idea. But it's just not about you. It's about that thing. And you need to put the focus on that thing as soon as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, because I had also some experiences with multiple things in my life, so I can totally relate to it. Yeah, the moment I feel like that I should fake it, it
Yeah,
does it just dies down in couple of days, not more than that. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, uh,
So yeah,
what was the
so
reason? What was the main reason you wanted to write the book? You know.
Well, I think people tend to write books for one of two reasons. Either they have an answer or they have a question,
mhm,
right? And I had a question. I truly did not know how to, make myself backable. I, I was getting rejected by every investor that I pitched. I had been turned down for lots and lots of job opportunities. I've been passed over for promotions.
Mhm.
Um, I was going through, I think what I saw a lot of other people going through. And I had a question that I was pretty sure they had as well. So that's why I wrote the book.
Wow, because unless until you really face a situation, maybe the urge to talk about it doesn't come out of your brain. Maybe that's the reason the book has come. So, what was the timeline between the rejection part you were feeling and the idea to write the book? What was the timeline?
Um, a couple of years, but I had been taking notes all along. So as I was going out and I was meeting with people who were giving me advice, I was realizing, hey, that one day I might be able to pass this advice along, right?
Huh?
mhm,
Because one of the things is that I not only did I have a tough time getting investors, I had a tough time getting advice on how to pitch investors.
Get it.
There were books out there, but the books were very much focused on the practical side of things, or focused on how to pull together a pitch deck,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't about the emotional side of it. How do I win somebody over, right?
Yep.
And the vast majority of the decisions we make are made based on energy and emotion,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
information. And so that was the side that I was really missing. So as I was starting to learn this craft from people who were very experienced, I was just taking my notes. And then, in 2016, a couple of years later, I decided, hey, you know what? It's time to start putting like pen to paper. Let me start writing what could be a book proposal. Thinking about what type of audience would need this, and that's when the process began.
That's very nice to, and it's a great experience to even you to experience, and then we are like listening to the experience. So we are also traveling with you in your words. That's the best part.
yeah.
So what was the best advice you got in these years of your research kind of thing? That's bad. The best and the worst. I want to know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the worst. Um, I think the worst. I think it has to do with trying to make yourself something that you're not, right?
Mm,
So, there's a difference between knowing your audience and changing yourself for that audience, right? Those are two different things. You have to know your audience. That's 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 pitching 101 is to really
Abs-
study who
uh,
people
uh,
are. But there's a difference between that and then trying to make yourself a different person in order to appease them. And we do that oftentimes because we feel like there's only one door to our dreams, right? And they are the person behind that door. That's never the case. It is all, I mean, I've yet in my 5 years of research to find a situation where that's the case. Even inside big companies or inside companies where you have one manager, one
mhm,
person,
mhm.
if you want something bad enough,
mhm,
there are still going to be other ways for you to make that happen. It may be because you decide to go to another company and do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's not a single person that's going to hold you back from what you want. But sometimes we behave like that person is. And so we try to customize, we try to do more than customize, we change ourselves. And that never ends out well. And there are plenty of examples that I brought up in the book about people who did that and ended up in a
Yeah.
bad place.
Correct. Yeah.
The best piece of advice that I got is that long-term success comes from short-term embarrassment. Long-term success comes from short-term embarrassment. And so you know, we're trying to protect ourselves from that embarrassment, right? I mean, I think that you find oftentimes people who will live an entire career just trying to make sure that they don't get embarrassed. That's the goal. But that that never really leads to, I think, the long-term success that we're looking for, right? It's too safe. And so I think as soon as I began to sort of realize that long-term success comes from short-term embarrassment, you know, it didn't necessarily make me, you know, want to fail. It didn't necessarily make me seek out failure, but it kind of made me realize that, you know, life is not a map, but it's a compass, right? And when you think about life as a compass, what that means is that taking the wrong turn, taking the wrong step is still valuable because it gives you information. It sharpens your compass, right? It sharpens your direction. And so these successes and these failures are all inputs. They're all information to sharpen that compass. And, you know, in retrospect, now that I have many failures under my belt, I can tell you that, you know, the failures were the things that actually made the compass even sharper. The success did, it helped, but the failures were really the ones that made me like sharpen, made me understand like clearly here's how it works and here's how it doesn't work. I think it was Bill Gates that said that success is a lousy teacher, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so true.
Absolutely. That's again a good story to hear. You know, this is why again I say that that's the reason the book is really a personal experience.
Yeah.
Wow. And okay, again, apart from the book, I just wanted to know, like, how much do you think like health is very important for a person's success? Because
what say it again? So
the general health. Yeah. How much is, you know, health important for a person in a person's success? Often people take a back step in the health to gain, you know, to get good success. So just want to know it from you.
I think it's vital. I think it's vitally important. You know, I spent a lot of my time when I was building my company. I spent a lot of time thinking about how how we could use innovation to improve health outcomes, right? So my company was a healthcare company, healthcare app. So how can we use innovation to you know, create a health service? What I realize is that it works the other way as well. You know, people who are healthy are more innovative as well, right? So it flows in both directions. And I mean, you know, what we tend to do in our lives, I think, is we tend to compartmentalize emotion from mental, from spiritual, from physical. Like we tend to sort of compartmentalize. We go to work, we bring our intellectual self to us. We go to the gym, we bring our physical self. We go home, we bring our emotional self. Maybe every once in a while we go to the temple or the church and we bring our spiritual self.
Wow.
I think that to this, you know, what I find amongst extraordinary people is that to some extent they're bringing these things together. You know, they're bringing their physical self to work, they're bringing their body into literally the work that they do, the emotion into the work that they do, and vice versa. And I think that there's a harmony that they're able to create, that I think is really important. So, you know, if you don't feel good, if literally you feel sick, you don't feel well, it's very hard for you to operate, I think, you know, intellectually very well, and vice versa. Intellectually, you feel beat down completely. It's very hard for you to feel physically well. I think these things are all they're all interconnected. They're like the four wheels of an automobile. Your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual. And if one wheel is spinning, sure, the car will move forward. Of course, it will, but it's not going to move fast. But if all of a sudden you start to spin multiple wheels at the same time, it feels like you're moving much faster than you could ever move before, without really all that much more effort, right? And that's where I think people start to reach peak performance.
Yeah, with the metaphor you used with a car, I was visualizing a Venn diagram wherein there are four circles, and the union is the success. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I was just visualizing the same thing. Yeah. So I think I don't have any other professional questions. So yeah. Just few personal questions maybe. What do you actually like? What inspires you so much? What do you like?
Okay. Yeah. I think I feel like what I'm very interested in is people who, what I think of as very raw leaders, people who are not afraid to sort of show that they don't know the answers, but they do it in a way that still makes you believe, right? And I put Gandhi in this camp, right? I think Gandhi, there was a lot of uncertainty in his life, right? There was a lot of uncertainty around what was going to happen, right? How was everything going to unfold? It's not like there was a roadmap for the movement. It's not like he knew I was going to take step by step. And if you look at the way Martin Luther King operated here in the United States, the same thing is true. The whole story is filled with uncertainty. But what I admire is they didn't try to hide that. Again, getting back to the theme of our conversation, they didn't try to fake it until they made it. They in a lot of ways they wore that on their sleeves. But I think that Martin Luther King, who studied Gandhi, said, look, we are going to get there, and if we can't fly, we drive. If we can't drive, we run. If we can't run, we walk. If we can't walk, we crawl. But we are going to get there somehow, some way. And I've always admired, watching leaders like that operate.
This reminds me the recent book I have read, Caste by Isabel Welker, wherein she has mentioned all these things. Yes. Wonderful. Coming to the book, so what was the recent book you have read? Anything that really fascinated you? A recent book that you have read?
Well, I mean, Isabel Wilkerson's book fascinated me. I mean, and it's been pretty recent as well. And I think the metaphor she used in the book that, oh, by the way, I'm getting an alert. I have to answer this question, and I'm going to have to jump. Okay.
Sure.
But the thing that I really admired about the book was really the comparison of caste to a physical cast, right? A physical cast on your arm. And the way she says it is like, look, we try to put things in a certain place, right? And oftentimes we are told that you belong in this place, you belong in this physical cast, and it's up to us to break out of that, right? And that's very, very hard to do when everybody is telling you that you belong there, you belong in that place. And so I really admire books that I think sort of are able to, I think, take a very, very complicated idea, right? And they're able to sort of give us ways to comprehend them in a simple way. And I think that Isabel Wilkerson, I think she definitely did that.
Thank you so much. That's a great thing. Thanks so much. It's a great experience I would ever endure. Thank you so much.
No, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Email me, let me know when it's out so I can share it. Also, we have some
Sure.
new headshot. When are you planning on putting it out?
By 20th of this
Maybe.
month, the magazine
well-
issue will be out. Yeah.
Okay, we have some new headshots coming on Monday or
Okay.
Tuesday. That might be good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We
So-
might we,
Sure
we
thing.
would be needing. Yeah. Sure.
Just
Thank
email
you.
me and I'll make sure to send those to you.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
your
you
good
for your
evening.
time.
Thank you.
All right.
Good
Okay.
evening.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.